Okay, everybody, so for the second model, we're going to cover what's known as the temperance model, and it has a connection, obviously, to the moral model, but it began to take on a whole different form. To temper has a lot of different meanings, but one of the meanings is to change or to modify in some way, and that was originally the intent of the temperance movement. What was different here is rather than focusing on the individual, the temperance movement people were really focused on the drink itself, on the beverage, and considered alcohol to be a fairly dangerous substance. In reality, they weren't too far off. Some people say that if alcohol was invented today, that you'd probably need a prescription for it, and I can certainly see that. Let me show you a few examples of the temperance movement. I hope you can see this okay. What's interesting about this is this one woman, I think, who is looking to the heavens because she's doing something good or something, I don't know. And you see the other two with hatchets, and that was a very famous part of the temperance movement as well. And here's another one. Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. Boy, that's getting kind of harsh, don't you think? But alcohol was not only viewed as kind of a poison, but it ruined families and it ruined businesses, and like this one, drinking leads to neglect of duty, moral degradation, and crime. And that's the kind of marketing and advertising that the temperance movement used in order to try and push this particular model into the public domain. Now, what happened to the temperance movement is that it became a political movement, right? So the people who were originally involved, there were churches involved, and then finally politicians involved, and then it began to really pick up speed. And the idea was really you couldn't drink moderately. If alcohol was a poison, it meant that absolutely everybody was at risk. And they managed to put enough pressure on Congress that they passed prohibition in the late 1800s. And this is sometimes called the largest social experiment in the history of the world. No one's ever tried that before. But prohibition fell apart eventually, and it was repealed in 1933. Now, just to tell you how important alcohol is the only substance that's got two mentions in our Constitution. Both its striking down the use of it and legalizing it once again. The thing about the Prohibition movement is it didn't outlaw drinking alcohol. It outlawed the manufacture and sale and transportation of alcohol. So they didn't have to go right down to drinking or anything else like that. So let's take a little bit of a look at interventions here, but I just wanted to point that out. Alcohol is in that particular perspective is believed to be the agent that's causing the problem itself. So the implied interventions is twofold. Exhortation, which means to encourage or to try and influence people and have that constant message out there. And the second intervention was for abstinence and prohibition. If you weren't going to make the choice yourself, then they would make the sale and manufacture illegal and do it for you, which didn't go over real well. Part of why it was repealed is because what the very wealthy at that time found out, the Westinghouse people or whatever, what they discovered, of course, is that since the government was no longer collecting taxes on alcohol, some of that burden fell on them. And so they convinced the public and Congress that if you didn't allow the working man to drink, it was a real danger, an invitation to the Bolsheviks to come in and take over our society. Bolsheviks were kind of latter-day communists, I guess. And so that kind of view prevailed. The intervention agents would be those people who do abstain, and as in that picture, it was largely in the beginning a women's movement, and of course legislators, the people who make our laws and who have something to say about alcohol. Now you can still see that today, less and less perhaps, but you can still see it. So how is it that we discourage excessive use of alcohol? Well, we do have certain laws. Bars close down at a certain time. Liquor stores close down at a certain time, and up till recently, they did not open up on Sunday. The grocery stores sell 3.2 beer, but they don't sell it until noon. Those are little ways that we have of trying to temper just how much alcohol we're going to have out there. But the reason, now, since Minnesota has now legalized the sale of alcohol on Sunday, you have to understand something. The bottom line runs everything, right? If you're having budget problems, they're going to consider changes in laws like that because it'll allow the increased sale of alcohol and consequently the taxes as well. There was a lot of talk about extending hours that bars remained open. That wasn't entirely successful, but that is what led to the legalization of sale here in Minnesota. So that's a temperance.